For all animals, the first step in the quest to satisfy their nutritional needs begins with the process of ingestion. There are four main mechanisms by which animals can ingest food. Thus, there are four ways in which animals can be classified based on their modes of ingestion. The first feeding mechanism is called suspension feeding. Now, most aquatic animals are suspension feeders, and these include clams, oysters, and certain types of whales. A great example of this is the baleen whale. Baleen whales are classified as any whale that has a comb-like plate called a baleen, and this is an example of that baleen right there. Baleens are simply can be thought of as one-way filters. They allow food and water in, and they only allow water out, trapping small invertebrates and small fish. Now, a humpback whale is an example of a baleen whale. So in order to feed, what it does is it opens its mouth widely and scoops in dense shoals of prey along with huge volumes of water. It then partly shuts its mouth and presses its tongue against its upper jaw, forcing the water to pass out sideways through the baleen. Substrate feeders are animals that live on or in their food source. A common example of a substrate feeder are caterpillars or even maggots, which burrow into animal carcasses. Now you see here that this caterpillar is living in its food source, which is this tree. It's actually causing great harm to this species of tree, and so it's considered a parasite. A subunit of substrate feeders are deposit feeders. Deposit feeders eat their way through dirt or sediments and extract partially decayed organic material consumed along with the soil or sediments. Fluid feeders feed on nutrient-rich fluid of living organisms. There are three main types of fluid by which these organisms derive their nutrients from. The first process is hematophagy. Hematophagy is the process in which some animals feed on blood. A good example of this is mosquitoes or vampire bats. The second type is nectarivores. As the name suggests, these organisms feed on sugar-rich nectar. And another great example of this is the hummingbird. The third type is plant sap feeders. Mosquitoes are a great example of fluid feeders. What people don't know is that both the male and female mosquitoes feed on nectar and plant juices in addition to blood. Feeding on blood is an evolutionary adaptation of some species so that the female can obtain the proper set of nutrients for their eggs. The last feeding mechanism involves bulk feeders. Bulk feeders involve the largest section of the animal kingdom, including humans. They have adaptations such as tentacles, pincers, claws, poisonous fangs, jaws, and teeth that allow them to kill their prey and tear off large pieces of meat or vegetation. The great example of a bulk feeder are these lions provided in the background picture. The lions will consume a large chunk of meat in any given mouthful, and they will use chemical digestion within the body to break down the carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids into the monomers needed to begin the anabolic processes to build the nutrients that they need to sustain themselves.